Hello, everyone. We are back. Another episode in the Design Lounge. And this is an exciting series. We're going to talk about inspiration. All things inspiration as a designer, where you pull inspiration from, how do you stay inspired, how do you get inspired, how is inspiration related to your firm or your team and your design. And I have a guy on today that I think can speak to that on a very specific scale. Brad Ramsey, Brand Ramsey Interiors. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So for those that don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself as well as maybe hint on your TV background, your TV career.
Okay. All right. Brad Ramsey Interiors. We're in Nashville, Tennessee. I started my career at a design firm as a project manager, kind of worked my way up there. That's where the TV show happened, so we'll
Yeah.
start on that.
Okay.
I launched my firm 12 years ago, and so
Yes.
we have a small
Congratulations on that.
team. Thank you. Yeah, keeping it going. We have a small team. I like to call us small but mighty.
Hmm.
And yeah, a long time ago, previous design firm, we had an HGTV show that kind of followed us in sort of real time doing projects here in Nashville, kind of before Nashville was an it place.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was an interesting experience. You know, one that's really hard to do the job of design and do the job of TV. And
Okay.
you know, if presented that option today, I'd probably decline it because I really love what we do in our design.
Yeah.
What an amazing experience, nonetheless.
Yeah, it's a different animal. I know I had Karen Bond, one of the End of the Design Lounge alumni. She had what was it, Restaurants Impossible, but it was like almost during COVID. But she talked about like, that process of being in other places and shooting and also trying to run a business while you're actually growing, while you're on TV as a design business. Two totally different things. And it's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, for sure.
Want to talk about again inspiration, right? Obviously, as designers, we need to constantly like refill that tank of being inspired. I'm sure you're pulled in all the kind of directions, and you have different projects and everything's going on. So I want to talk about how do people maintain inspiration? And I heard you have like 50,000 photos in your phone of like just moments that you've captured and beauty and things like that.
Probably.
So, hey, I don't know what kind of phone you must have like the Tetherbyte series iPhone, but I want to know, where do you go to get inspired?
Yeah, yeah, actually, I just got back from San Francisco and Napa and
I'm jealous, by the way,
of
but
architecture and photos of the topography and photos of the plants. And I am inspired by nature, definitely, but just new cities and new, like the energy
mm,
in the city and, things that aren't in my everyday.
totally,
And so I feel like a sponge. Like that's why I
yeah.
actually probably have closer to 70,000 photos on
Okay, so that was an old count.
but yeah, I feel like I'm constantly just snapping something if it's attractive to my eye, and I don't even know why, and I may not go back to it, but something about cataloging it, I think it registers in me somehow.
Totally, and it allows you to pull from. That was gonna be my next question because, 70,000 photos now and counting, we'll say, that's a lot to pull from, but a lot to catalog. How do you catalog it? Is it something that you're just gifted where you can pull it back from in your mind? But how do you catalog that so you can maybe reference it later, or is that something that you just do naturally?
I think once you have like a team and they're responsible for keeping things organized,
Yeah,
then you get worse at doing it yourself because you started to delegate some of those things. I think a good bit of them are for me. They're for
yeah,
personal inspiration.
yeah.
They're for being reminded that there's beauty in like little things. But when something feels like it directly aligns with a project, I usually shoot it over to my team so that they can put it in an inspiration folder in a client's folder. That way we can go back and reference it. We can pull it, whether it's a palette of colors
Hmm.
or whatever it is that feels like it's appropriate for that project. So I kind of hand it off.
Yeah, 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 yeah. You're like, okay, I remember, photo 23,302.
Yeah.
This one is perfect for that. I know you said, like, for you, your legacy, you want to be remembered as being able to mirror your clients through great design. Can you expand on that a little bit, what that means? Because obviously we know as designers, everyone has their taste, maybe what they're known for, whatever. But you, obviously, I'm sure you have a spectrum in which you can pull from. But mirroring clients that's actually the first time I've ever heard someone say that. So can you expand on what that means and how that kind of navigates your practice?
Yeah. So I'm gonna like taken aside for a second because I
Okay.
had the privilege several years ago of being on a podcast. One of my best friends is a therapist, and she
Okay.
does a podcast about mental health. And
Gotcha.
she likes to have different professionals on that are not in the mental health world. And we were vamping on this conversation about mirroring, and she said that's a therapeutic term. And
Hmm.
basically, if you are in conversation with me and then I'm able to in turn say, what I'm hearing from you is this, and I'm able to
Got yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yes.
something, that means that I took it in, I received it, I understood it, and I'm able to put it back into my words. And when the other
Gotcha.
person says, yeah, 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 it's like they've been seen and they've been heard. And so I feel like we try to do that in our design. Um, a lot of times you start an initial design with a client and they're like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not exactly sure what my style is.
Yeah.
Some of them have a lot of, photos and a lot of ideas. But sometimes it's what comes out in the subtlety of conversation
The
that's a more
nuances.
important thing to pay attention to. And so a lot of times, I do an initial meeting with clients where I show them ideas and I call it my hit or miss meeting. It's an
Okay.
opportunity to put things in front of them and
See how they respond and react.
how they respond to it. And then we start to get better and better and better at our job being able to put things in front of them and pull together design that they were already connecting with.
Totally.
And I think somewhere through that process, people feel like, I get the comment sometimes, it's like, how did you know that was like going to be perfect for me?
Yeah.
And it's not like I want to like pat myself on the back, but I did try to pay attention.
Totally.
As for me, I don't want to take some design aesthetic that I want to accomplish and stick it in their home. I want to make sure that everything that we do is somehow a reflection of what they've been presenting to us or ways that we're learning them. Now, it's my responsibility to not just take what they say and do it,
Yeah.
to kind of churn through it and then put it together with really good design.
Totally.
But yeah, that's kind of the idea of mirroring is being able to really hear what people say and not just hear it, but like take it in and turn
Totally.
that back into a design that's thoughtful for them.
Well, in reality, and that's like such a great point because most our clients that have a very specific aesthetic and they know what they want to make and know what they like, and they just need to be able to have someone put it together. But a lot of people just don't have no idea,
Yeah.
right? Like I remember I started out as an image consultant, and I would have these questionnaires I would send to clients, and they'd be like, "Oh, I hate color, or I hate this, or I hate that." And then eventually I'll go to their closet and see their clothes, and the things they said they hated the most were the things they lit up the most about when I touched it. Or they're like, "Oh, whenever I wear this, I actually get the most compliments and I feel the best." And it was just listening, hearing, watching their body language and what they responded and reacted to allowed me to identify and almost reinterpret what they want, right? Because again, they're downloading all this information to you and you're hearing it, mirroring it, and then reinterpreting it in a language that they can understand and be like, okay, yes, that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it takes a while honing your skill set to be able to kind of stand in like what you know to be good design and also
Hmm.
allow all of this influence from a client and be
Yeah.
able to kind of put it all together in something that is tasteful but also reflective of them.
Yeah, no, that makes it. Now it's interesting because again, so what I love about having these conversations is I get to meet with these amazing designers, talented, designers, architects, whatever, and I do this research and I find these words where they might say like specific for you, like intuitive, and where the client's at the heart of the design. And then as I have these conversations, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. That's why that's why he came to this point a couple different times in a couple different articles where I never try to regurgitate what's already been said, but it's like I try to find the in between spaces, if you will. And I'm like, oh, there's a reason why. And then I have these conversations like, oh, that's exactly what he means. That's exactly what they're doing. That's what they're implying when they say this. And that's why, they come back to this thing like where you said, the client is the heart of the home, or you want them to feel at peace in the home. Like it all makes sense after having these conversations, which is like I said, it's like my favorite part of doing this.
Yeah,
Uh,
you're doing what we do.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
I am your Brad Ramsey interiors.
There you go.
No, this is fun. My follow-up question to what I just asked, as far as marrying clients, is you mentioned how clients don't always know what they want, right? And you're listening. I know you aren't a fan of trends, but you like the fact that anything and everything goes right now. But that catalog, if you will, of inspiration, is it almost subconsciously like a part of your design process? Because again, I would imagine having that catalog, that wealth information to pull from, you're able to listen to what a client is saying and repurpose it not only through words, but actual inspiration and what you've cataloged in the past. It would seem like that is almost subconsciously or consciously, but like a part of your design practice. Am I correct, or how does that fall into that?
Yeah, you know what? And it's interesting because until you said it that way, I haven't necessarily put it together. I was very inspired. Well, I was a drawing and painting major when I first started college, and I
Yeah.
did fine arts all the way through high school. And I loved my art teacher in high school. And
Okay.
our program was very driven by reproducing things that we had seen. So
Got you.
take
Okay.
a Monet painting exactly the way the Monet painting is, or pulling a magazine photo and drawing it, or whatever. And I know some of my friends that were like, oh, our teacher only lets us do original work. And I remember asking my teacher one time, and he was like, what do you pull from to do original work when you haven't been exposed to replicating the work
Mm,
of the masters and things like that?
totally.
He's like, you need to build an encyclopedia inside of yourself. So then
Gotcha.
you feel the inspiration, you're pulling from things that you've already built the skill set for.
Totally.
So, to me, I think having done this for 17 years, I've learned so much along the way that allows me to churn through the regular, everyday grind of design. And then what uplifts the whole process is the individual client and the relationship we form and the things that light up their face when you're showing it to them. And so the design starts to get those layers that are reflective of them, but it still has to be rooted in the understanding of quality design, how to handle a construction process start to finish, how to deal with all the people along the way. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think that it's definitely important to have something that you're pulling from, but be trying to do it in a new way each time.
Totally, totally. And I think, like you mentioned before, your clients kind of being, the heart, if you will, your home, that would make it easier for you, particularly for every project's gonna be a little bit different, right? Although, again, everyone has their own design aesthetic or what they're, maybe aligned with or more drawn to. But by you keeping the client the center or the focus of the design, everything's going to be a little bit unique and almost like custom one of them. Let's talk about the Ezel project.
Yeah.
I know that is a Chicago influenced home, I believe. I know you love Chicago. What makes that project so special?
Um, that's an interesting question. When I got hired to do the job, I thought I was like out of my league.
Okay.
Just they were a family with an antiques that had come from her father and beautiful
Mm,
rugs, and she's from New Orleans, and what we call brown furniture, that had
okay.
been in the family forever. And I remember walking through her home, and her home was absolutely gorgeous, but very, very traditional.
Gotcha.
And she wanted a fresh perspective for this new home. So they sold their estate home that they'd had and raised all of their kids. They had the 3-acre property where they had the Easter egg hunts out front.
Okay.
And what we built was a quad of 4 houses because her husband is a developer,
Okay.
and they were intending to move into one of them. And so we were able to set the palette of all 4 homes by designing the one individually for them. So
Gotcha.
that was kind of fun.
Totally.
They knew that their little quad was going to reflect what they wanted for their home.
Absolutely.
So it was a downsizing, it was a reusing of antiques and rugs and phenomenal artwork, and then infusing it with some new furniture, actually walking them through the whole build process. So trying to do the palettes of all the cabinetry and the countertops and all of that. So, it's probably the most things that I have reutilized on a project.
Okay.
I feel like a lot of times by the time someone's building a new home, they're ready to get rid of everything they've had.
Yeah.
They have
No.
pieces that they're like, this is my mom's, I want to keep it, but we're ready for something fresh. And so this was more like we had spreadsheets of artwork, how much they were valued, how long they'd had
Oh, okay.
pieces that her family still had in New Orleans that we could ship over if we wanted them. It was a process of like really marrying new and old world and trying to do it in a fresh way.
Yeah. It probably helped if they had good taste.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in some ways, I feel like it elevated what we did because
Yeah.
if I'd been given a blank slate and only been given two initial meetings with them to start designing, I
Yeah.
may not have had as much to pull from.
Yeah.
Walking through their old house, looking through photos of pieces that are family owned, like you were really starting to get to know like things that meant something to them. And it's funny because there's a good bit of things that I wanted to use that she was like, "Oh, I'm tired of that."
Really?
Like, are you sure? Like, you wanted me to reuse these important pieces, but when it came down to it, like, we really used the ones that worked and were
Yeah.
able to store and say goodbye for now to the ones
Yeah. And
that,
really curate that space, especially in the downsizing.
yeah.
That's awesome. I mentioned Chicago. I mentioned that I was Chicago inspired. I know it's close to you and you like to venture there. Do you ever see, as you guys are expanding and have projects all over the states, do you ever see a Brad Ramsey Interiors footprint in Chicago, or you think Nashville is the space always and forever? Now that I guess you could be in Nashville and Chicago at the same time. That's my question. Would you expand in Chicago as well?
Probably not like an office location.
Okay.
In general, I am very comfortable staying in this small but mighty.
Yeah.
It's like you spread too thin and you become the manager of all these different entities that are all doing work underneath your name. And like, I love that people do that and it's very lucrative. But I like to be in the grind of the day to day. I like doing it.
Yeah.
But taking on projects there, absolutely. It's such a beautiful city. I'd love to have more opportunities.
Totally, totally. I mean, and now you've been in business, what you mentioned, 12 years. It's so funny. You've been in business 12 years. I think last year named like next wave of designers. And it's like, I've been over a decade in this, but it's still cool to be on the next wave. But obviously, we talked a lot about inspiration. I know you travel a lot. For new designers as well as seasoned designers, how important is that? And I'm saying that in a way in relation to them scaling and growing, right? Because although you say your team is small but mighty, you now have these bigger projects. You're now doing even larger projects. You mentioned with the Ezel project, how that kind of lifted and uplifted and scaled maybe even the not the taste, but the parameters in which you guys design. How important is that? Because the people that listen to this are new designers. They're like, I want to have these type of projects to really put yourself in a place of inspiration and how it translates to your bottom line.
Yeah, I think finding reasons to be inspired is incredibly important. We often joke that we put our nose to the grind, and I don't know what's going on out there because we're doing technical drawings and we're dealing with contractors and we're doing all the stuff and then we're moving into furnishing and I can very easily just focus on what we're doing. But when I take a step out of that grind, there's so much inspiration everywhere. There's so many ways that other people's eyes see layering a space that is inspirational. A space can be as beautiful with three perfectly placed pieces of furniture in it as it can be maximalism when it's done right. And there's
Yeah,
there's something to be gleaned from that. It's like you have to take a moment to settle within yourself, like what is the balance that's working in here. And if you don't allow yourself to be exposed to that, it's really hard to then kind of add it into your repertoire. And I don't think that a photo in a magazine does it justice. You have to be in the 360 degrees of the space,
yeah,
feel it, and get a sense for it. Because that's what you're creating. I mean, we all want a magazine feature, we want beautiful photos, but we need a livable space.
yeah.
Someone to be able to walk into it and go, oh, this is so beautiful, or this feels amazing, or whatever. So you've got to be in spaces like that in order to feed the inspiration like properly. On the opposite side, when I go over to my friends' houses, they're like, "Don't judge me," and I'm like, "Listen, there's an essence of you in here that makes this so beautiful to me, and you are not paying me right now, so I am not working."
Right. No, it's so funny you say that because again, I don't do it anymore. But when I was dressing people, and they'd be like, I'm like, I don't judge. I don't judge. Not only is it so individual, right? Like, and it's meant to be a representation of you and who you are and how you move and how you feel and what gets you excited. But similarly, I'm not getting paid. I don't care what you wear. Like what you wear doesn't affect me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Do whatever you want. And it's even funny. I got a message the other day from someone that knew me from that life, and they were like, "Do you style your girlfriend?" I'm like, "No." If she asks my opinion, I'll give it to her. But she can wear whatever she wants to wear. You know, that is it. That is it's such an individual experience, individual choice. It's like, hey, you do you. You do you, I'll do me, and everyone is happy. So I never judge. I don't even care. I don't even pay attention to it. If you ask me, if you want my opinion, I used to be under the perspective like, okay, but do you actually want my opinion, or do you just want me to say you look amazing?
Right, exactly, exactly. Well,
Yeah,
and you also know the nuance that it takes to get to a finished space.
yeah,
So you can't start at top level and give an opinion of the space because everything we do starts at the initial swatch, you know?
yes,
What is the
yes.
first color that we are locking in? What is the first texture that we're locking in? And then you're vamping off of that for the whole project. And so you can't just walk into a space and have a judgmental opinion.
No, well, and the thing is, to your point, I saw I was like, I need more information. You know what I mean? Like, you can't just ask me, a blanket statement. What should I wear to this? Okay, well, I have a bevy of questions that you may or may have not even considered. But I want to know what are you trying to do? What's the mood? What's the weather? What's the temp? You know what I mean? What are you doing afterwards? All these other things before we even get to the functionality of it. You know what I mean? So it's like it's interesting to hear someone else talk about that. Um, I want to leave two things. What is next for you? And when is going to be when's your trip to Italy? When are you going to make that happen? I know that's on the checklist.
It's on the bucket list for sure.
Yeah.
What is next for me? I'm constantly in the process of trying to do what we do better,
Hmm.
more efficiently. And so, we made a conscious decision a couple of years ago to take on less jobs, but take
Okay.
on bigger or more inspiring jobs. And so, 90% of what we do, unless it's a previous client that comes back to us, are ground up builds from architectural phase all the way to furnishing or complete gut remodel. And the passion of being able to put your fingerprints on every single decision it's scary at times, but it is so rewarding.
It is.
There's nothing kind of more, what's the word I'm looking for? It can be like tying your arm behind your back when a client buys a house that's done
Yeah.
and
No,
they say,
totally.
hey, we want you to furnish it. And if you want to make a couple changes and you just like your eyes scan the space and you're like, a couple changes, like that domino did not lead to that domino. And like,
Yeah.
how do I fix this?
Totally.
And we do, and we have fun with it. And sometimes it leads to design that we wouldn't normally do. But being able to anticipate those dominoes so that they fall together in a really thoughtful way is my favorite way of doing design. And so I want to keep doing that and doing it better, and having more opportunities to really build like beautiful, thoughtful spaces for people. And so, as long as those opportunities are coming, I can do this for a long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, Italy is definitely on the bucket list. I did Portugal and
I want to go there.
I did Lisbon to Porto
Okay.
to Madrid and then to Barcelona 2 summers ago, and it was
Okay.
absolutely unbelievable. And I think what I do is I wait until I can take 2 weeks and really do it right.
Yes.
So like it's not in the cards this year just because of
Yeah.
what we have going on. But I'm only a couple years away from my 50th birthday. It,
Okay.
I'm churning through the contemplation of is it for that or am I setting
Right.
myself up by making it too big a celebration? I don't know. But
I mean,
when I go, it'll be everything.
no, it would be amazing. I might have to ask you about Portugal offline because it's a place I've been wanting to go. And literally, I just had this conversation about not this year, because this year I have a little trips planned, but like next year, what is that big trip and taking a couple weeks? I was in Paris in January, and my brother just went for the first time, and he was asking where to go and what to do. And he was like, the next time he goes, he wants to have 2 weeks to go all the little other places because it's so nice when you're over there. You can get so many places and experience so much if you
Yeah,
have like that full 10 to 14 day itinerary. So.
100%.
I might be asking for some.
Yeah, yeah, it's an easy country to traverse, and like everyone speaks English. The food is good. The $2 like table wine is phenomenal.
Okay,
Can't go wrong with that.
love it, love it, love it. Well, I can't wait to see. when that trip does happen, hopefully you'll share some of it online.
Yeah,
And I can't wait to see the
probably
project. So
like 20,000 photos.
yeah, yeah, exactly. You're going to be by 100 by then for sure. You're definitely going to, you might you say, you're definitely going to be by 100 by then. Again, your projects are amazing. I'm so happy we're able to make the time, especially coming back up to your birthday. Again, happy belated for that. And yeah, we'll just be watching and seeing what's next.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you have a great day.
All right, you too.